We're going to take a look at the next gen starts over at NFL.com. Look at the top wide receivers from week 13, how they're scoring on the field, how they're getting their targets, which ones to pick up off waivers, what to do with them, and everything else. But before we begin, you need to click that subscribe button right now. We're deep diving the waiver wire every day. We're using these videos to help you set your lineups. And on top of that, we're deep diving the trending players with the You Need series. Click that button. Stop missing out. Ric Flair's watching. You do not want to disappoint Ric Flair. We're starting with our first wide receiver. It's Nick Westbrook, and all he does is score touchdowns. 2 this week. Since week 6, he's only got 1 game without a touchdown. He's been on fire. That trend shouldn't continue. That is an odd anomaly that a wide receiver continues to score touchdowns every week. It's an odd anomaly for any player in the National Football League. Nick Westbrook is on a hot run right now, and it should end sometime down the line, at least regress to average. But that being said, he's hot. If you want to roll with it, like if you got a gamble in your lineup and you see a wide receiver there and it's Nick Westbrook versus the other wide receivers and you just want to make that gamble, that's something to look at. He's getting deeper targets. He's starting to get more volume, more targets coming his way. They're all downfield. He's getting those red zone looks. If he hits, he's going to hit all right for you. That's what he's been doing recently. 11, 16, 19, and 12 during this run since week 6. We've been solid here. Nick Westbrook could be the good gamble for you off the waiver wire. Parker Washington. We've been watching him ever since Christian Kirk went out, working in the slot, running a lot of routes, getting a lot of opportunity, and they had to dice it up in the air. The Jaguars did. And Parker Washington with Mac Jones hit this week, running a lot of routes, getting some opportunity downfield, out of the slot, working downfield as well, getting short targets as well, all over the place. I can't say this is going to hit every game, but I can definitely say he is going to run a good route participation rate for the rest of the season. That should allow him to get some opportunity and workload. Saw 12 targets in this matchup. Could see somewhere along the lines of like 5 to 8 per game going forward, which could allow him to be productive. Something to pay attention to if he catches fire, especially out of the slot. Christian Kirk was up and down, though. Christian Kirk was starting over him because he's better. Parker Washington, if he starts to fire, will probably be up and down. That is what we're seeing here. That's probably is what we're going to get out of Parker Washington. You add in week 13 to this, and you're getting a Christian Kirk-like fantasy football week-to-week forecast out of him. Maybe a little bit less on the lower games, but Parker Washington getting targets downfield and getting a lot of work rates. Michael Pittman looks like he's coming back. 3 weeks in a row, he did something for you in fantasy football. Nothing grand this week, though. 5 catches, 42 yards. We're getting targets. Josh Downs was out. 9.6 PPR fantasy points week 11, which is okay. Good enough to get the job done, but not going to win any weeks. 15.6 a wide receiver 2 in week 12. We did this, 9 point something. We had 3 down games going into week 11. And before that, 17.3, 14.7, 12.5. So Michael Pittman, trending to be a high-end wide receiver 3 for the season, but we're getting more opportunity in the offense. The offense is clicking a little bit better in the passing game. It's matchup dependent. It is a little bit, but the volume's not super high and the yardage is not super high, but it's a little bit more efficient compared to like the first few weeks of the season. There's a little bit more gusto and upside to it, but not as volatile. With Anthony Richardson, not comparing to Flacco era, Michael Pittman here starting to round out some stats over these next 3 weeks. We got 7 targets in this matchup. Not a buy, but he also could be on waivers right now. If you're looking for a dart throw, that's what he is. I'm not trusting him going forward, but I am recognizing he is getting targets. He is running a fair clip of routes, a high route participation rate. Targets are downfield, and he's done it before. Lad McConkey is coming into his own, having a very good rookie season, averaging 13 points per game, 12 targets in this matchup. Balls all over the place with him as well. He's lined up all over the place. He's running all types of different routes. 117 yards on 9 catches. We're getting the volume, and we're getting consistent here on the back end of the season these last 3 weeks with what we did here on top of 18.3, 14.3. Week 8, 29.1. So we're up and down, but that's a good rookie season. We got some down weeks, but he is a rookie. but he's showing that upside. He's flashing good, somewhat consistent too, and we're getting better throughout the back end of the season. McConkey is very encouraging. He's a wide receiver I would pay up for in next year's drafts. I think the stock's going to rise in Dynasty as people start to backtrack and look at what he did this year. Up and down a little bit. 13 points per game as a rookie is very good. That has increased after this week. That being said, McConkey's looking good. We're looking at Brian Thomas Jr. We're getting deep balls. It's deep ball city. We're trying to get yards after the catch. He's a very dangerous wide receiver. 3 wide receiver 1 weeks. The low games aren't horrible. Also, we've been dealing with horrible quarterback play and some injuries. But we're starting to get consistent. 4 balls caught, 76 yards and a touchdown. Very good week against the Texans here. And we're getting those deep balls still. That is what you want. Even with bad quarterback play, all you have to do is bring in one of those deep balls and you're going to cash out. Brian Thomas Jr. is always going to at least be a lottery ticket dandy in your lineups from week to week. That's what that chart says, and we're also getting good volume here of targets, which we can get some flatline consistency and some wide receiver 1 weeks out of him. At least some double-digit PPR fantasy performances. Not many games under 10, just 4 of them on the year. He's been pretty steady. 13.3 PPR points per game. A lot like McConkey, but he scores a little bit differently. That being said, you're looking at Brian Thomas Jr. as a high-end asset going into next year. Jaxon, Smith-Njigba, averaging 15.3 PPR points per game going into this contest. 3 wide receiver 1 weeks, just like the 2 prior wide receivers here, but his downside's not horrible. 5.7, 6.9, 3.9 in PPR fantasy, scoring in weeks 1, 3, and 7 here. This week, 4 balls caught, 74 yards, over 10 PPR fantasy points, pushing like 11.4. We're getting targets downfield. We're getting the ability to get yards after the catch. We're working out a slot. We're running a lot of routes. We're getting a lot of opportunity. Having a good second year. Last year, remember, we started off the season injured. We had that wrist hand injury. Prior to that, we were injured at Ohio State. But we're coming to our own here in our second season, and we're starting to be productive. We're starting to be consistent. A wide receiver that's probably going to go in the middle rounds of fantasy drafts next year. That's probably still going to be relatively cheap, but not liquid considering the production. For Dynasty, I think the price is only going to go up incrementally because you're going to add in more wide receivers in the draft, rookie FOMO, everything else. I think Jaxon Smith-Njigba, though, is a good bet for the long term. Terry McLaurin, look at his chart versus everybody else. Very consistent 3 down games. Just like everybody else, just 3 down games. But he's a wide receiver 2 locked most weeks. And he's got 2 games of wide receiver 1 production. But he's solid. 20, 18, 15, 23, 15, 17.5, 15.9, 16.3, a down game, then 21.2. Then what he did this week of 8 catches, 73 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He's having a hell of a season. He's been productive. He's been helping Jaden Daniels. People were worried about him over the first 2 weeks of the season. Then he caught fire. Consistent. Rocking it every week. He's a deep ball dandy. He's very nuanced. Good hands downfield. He's going to be good for the rest of the season. And if he busts on you, I mean, you can't be mad at that. You can't be mad. Look at what he's been doing all year. T. Higgins. What you see here is what you're getting. You're getting a guy that can blow up on any given Sunday with those deep targets. He's getting a good volume of targets. Sometimes he can be on the down. But if I have T. Higgins, I ain't going to worry about benching him or starting him. I'm just going to throw him in. Just going to throw him in. And just hope for the best. Because the best is more than likely happening. We only played in 6 games this year. And 3 of them are wide receiver 1 games. That being said, all of them but 1 are past 10 PPR fantasy points. We've played in only 6 games this year. We have just as many wide receiver 1 games as every wide receiver we talked about in their performances this year, and only played in like half or less of the games they played in. He's got upside. He can be consistent. He's a good wide receiver. He's going to catch that bag whenever he hits the open market. We're looking at Tyreek Hill. Rough season, mainly due to the quarterback play. 6 balls caught, 83 yards and a touchdown. Look at where the ball's going. He's all over the place. He can get yards after the catch. And even in those down moments, all he has to do is get the ball in space and he's gone. That's the thing about him. Averaging 11.7 points per game. A good average there to downers. Have been pretty bad. We got 4 down games on the season. Technically 5 if you count week 12, 9.8 there. That being said, Tyreek Hill is probably going to have a strong run towards the back end of the season. Malik Nabers, just getting targets all over the place. He's a heavily targeted wide receiver. This is a great rookie wide receiver here. Justin Jefferson-esque, Jamar Chase-esque, one of the top wide receivers in football. Going forward, next year, the next year after that, and the next year after that. 13 targets, 8 catches, 69 yards. This is a trend. It ain't going to stop. Doesn't matter who the quarterback is. And we haven't had a wide receiver 1 week for a while, but the volume's been there. He's been steady. And when you look at what he's been doing in the box score, you're not going to complain. He's only got one game under 10 PPR fantasy points and averaging 17 points per game on the season. That's not bad. We're consistent. The workload's consistent. Malik Nabers, big time get. Those are the wide receivers we're looking at from week 13, prospecting out forward. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on the way out. Thank you for watching. Catch you on the next video.